Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Anchoring the Consciousness of Oneness World Summit. I'm Sarah Daves, co-host for this event, and today I'm talking with Ram Tiwari in Nepal to discuss promoting peace and creating massive change for the masses. Ram is the president of Nepal Institute of Justice, a nonprofit organization working to promote and establish the restorative justice system in Nepal. He's worked in the fields of conflict transformation and justice since 2007, specifically since 2013, which he believes to be a second inning in his life. He's worked to establish restorative justice in Nepal as a more humane alternative to the current punitive and adversarial justice system. He was involved in developing Nepal's restorative justice projects as a team member and writing the country's first ever national curriculum on restorative justice. He's drafted training manuals on restorative justice and circles and has trained more than 450 lawyers and community justice workers across the country in the field of restorative justice and peace building. So thank you for joining us, Ram. I appreciate you being here very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for having me. It's my honor to be here.
Yes, and we are also
part of your initiative and then the community that you're trying to create. Yeah, it's my honor, tremendous honor.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. It's such an honor to have you. And especially at 3:30 in the morning in Nepal right now. So I appreciate you being awake for this and taking the time to do this with me.
My honor. I said it's my honor.
Yeah. So I want to ask you some questions about the Nepal Institute of Justice that you created. NIJ, it's the first organization in Nepal established to create change in the justice system in the country. Can you explain what NIJ is and why you decided to create the organization?
My background is that I was a student of law. Starting 2009. Before that, I was doing social anthropology, which was more about understanding how cultures work in different contexts, right? And then when I studied law, the objective was that I would become, a very good lawyer, wanted to change society. So that was my plan as I started studying law. But somewhere in the middle, I realized that law was not doing what it should have been doing. So in Nepal specifically, but generally across many countries, law was working on one template, on one way, and then justice was not being served. There was a cry for justice everywhere, even though we had law or legal systems everywhere. So there was a distinction between law and justice, meaning that law was not serving to the ends of justice. So somewhere in the middle of my law school, I realized that I want to do something for justice and not for law. So that's when I started exploring if there were alternatives to traditional lawyering or traditional justice system. So then I come across the idea of restorative justice has been introduced already in Europe, in the US, in many countries around the world. So, the moment of the bliss, the moment of finding, the moment of discovery. So that's when I think that I started, feeling immediately the need of that justice system in our country and maybe all over the world, right? So that's when I started, when I decided that I would dedicate my life actually for that end. So I became a lawyer, but I didn't want to do the traditional lawyering. I was a very good student of law, the valedictorian that you call in the US. But I didn't want to do that lawyering and want to do something collectively for this goal. So with some of my friends, we started discussing this idea. But it took some time for us to actually institutionalize. But from 2013, I started working on restorative justice in various capacities. So I work for some organizations where we try to introduce this idea in Nepal. That was a project, 2-year project. We had some funding, um, but towards the end of that project, before it ended, I decided to quit it. And things that I had in my mind, I wanted to do those. So we formed this in 2016. So Energy is a non-profit, like you mentioned. We have just one goal: to promote restorative justice system in Nepal and beyond. Not only to promote, but establish this system as a functional alternative to the justice system, as a more human way of dealing with people, building peace. There are two ways of building peace. One is through law and order. You can have perfect laws, you can have like police, military men on the streets, and you can have peace. The other is, have justice, harmony, cooperation, and have peace. So we are choosing the latter, the second option. That's our goal, and that's the life that I've been living for all these years.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Thank you. So, so the political climate in Nepal is very different than the United States. It's definitely less binary in thinking because there are so many political parties. Can you kind of give us an idea of what the political system is like and what the legal system is like as a result of those two interacting?
Mm-hmm. Well, the cultural, I would say the social cultural system was or has been very non-adversarial. We used to have, and we still do, have the community-based peace building practices, going for centuries. We still have that in place. We see that there has not been big riots, big violence occurring in this country for many, many years. Having said that, we have seen, in some recent decades, the emergence of new political ideas for various political goals. So looks like a contradiction, but I see that somewhere in our cultures, even though we were more towards justice and peace, maybe there were some gaps, in the way we were trying to pursuing those. Say there were structural problems, meaning that we used to have traditional justice systems, but maybe that was not as inclusive as people wanted to be, in the modern political terms, right? So that unmet need of being included, everybody, was manifested, I would say, in political terms. So that's my understanding. But even if we have many political parties, we now see that they don't have big differences, So that's mostly because of an individual who wants to lead a different political party, wants to split from his or her mother party, and to start different. So there are individual goals, interest, rather than a manifestation of culture, I would say. So it's both. So what has contributed? What our culture has contributed in this political climate is that we had a civil war, or let's say conflict, for 10 years, and then the political parties came and they reconciled. So the reconciliation just occurred at the political level, the national level, but no such programs by the government were launched at the community levels. But still, we don't see that people have the resentments or want to take up arms again, fight for one another, even if they were doing in this name, some years back. So that's what I mean by the culture of tolerance, the culture of cooperation that was there, and people will just fall back to that system that we have in place, no matter what the political system is. So political system is goes a very different path than the cultural systems in Nepal, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And so the justice system is not very old. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. If you talk of the modern justice system, it's not very old. But the traditional justice system has history over, over many centuries. The current justice system, what we call the conventional criminal justice system, it's about 50, 60 years old. We have many laws which are very new. Um, Most of the laws were, in the initial days and also later, brought or let's imitated from India or Great Britain or Europe. In the name of modernizing the state, the state wanted to modernize itself, so it just introduced these laws and wanted to make it a new country. But more than these laws, we have a built-in justice system which goes, for centuries and centuries.
Yeah, yeah. And so in with the new model of justice that is instituted right now, that's only 50 years old, which is very young compared to what we have here in the States and in Europe and all that. So what has been the result that you've seen and noticed over decades and generations as a result of this justice system being instituted in Nepal?
Well, one was that people did not understand what justice meant or what law meant to them, because the way it was framed, how the laws are framed, right? They have these big words which only certain people understand. The professionals will understand. It's not accessible to the even the language of the law isn't accessible to people, right? They don't understand. And think of that in context like ours, where we have a high level of illiteracy, in terms of the not education but illiteracy. We have high level of illiteracy, so people don't understand what law says. So who benefits us of this? Out of this is the professional, the lawyers, the judges, people who can read and write. So these people make money out of people's others' sorrows or whatever. So that's one. The second thing is we also don't understand. People, as a lay person, we don't understand how the justice system works. So the procedures that are there, we don't understand how courts work. What are the mechanisms that you need to go through, that you need for your to get justice, right? So the language is complex. It's esoteric. We don't understand the system itself. The mechanism is esoteric. We don't understand how it works. So it's not it's not for the people. I mean, if it was meant for people, it should have been crafted that way. It should have been made that way, but it hasn't been so. So what we created out of this is, some professionals benefited out of this. The lawyers became richer. The judges became richer. The people who were the victims of, conflict or crimes or the system became more victimized. So what we see over the years is that people see increasing dissatisfaction, over the justice system. It was supposed to control crime, but the crime hasn't really, declined out of, depending on the justice system that we have. And also, we see that there are new unmet needs of justice, such as, people want to experience healing, people want to see someone being accountable. Not any of these are happening. So I don't know what this justice system wants to, achieve. I see that it hasn't achieved any justice goals. It might have achieved some other goals, some professional goals, some monetary goals, some political goals, but it hasn't achieved any justice goals. So that's the reason why we need to, raise this issue very, vocally, saying that, see, we're taking a wrong path. Let's, make a U-turn before it's late, and we are in a comfortable situation. Then the countries of the West, in taking this U-turn and going back to the roots of justice system, because we have not advanced so far. We have not built like large prisons. We have not had private prisons. We don't have that the modern system taking across all aspects of our lives. So we have room enough that is left for us to come back to the roots and redo things that we want to do, that is more human, that is more collaborative, that is more people centric. I see that this is also happening across the world, right? So where we have the modern, what we call modern justice system, it's not achieving any of the justice goals. The prisons are filling up, crimes are rising, the diversity of crimes are rising, but we don't see that any, and also the concern that the needs of justice are rising, but who is responding to this? The justice system is not. It's not responding to this.
Yeah, it seems it's the justice system. The answer is to crack down harder and make more strict rules and harsher punishments and things like that, and thinking that that's going to deter these whatever crimes there are. But you've noticed that doesn't occur. That doesn't actually solve the problem. It makes it worse in some cases.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, that's right. And what we always emphasize in Nepal in our trainings, in the works that we do, is there are two ways of building peace. One is the means of law and order, and the other is the means of justice and harmony. So whether we want to build peace through law and order is a very different thing, right? You can have big laws, important laws, strong laws, stringent policies, and then you can have peace. That is negative peace. And if you look at this in many countries or contexts, it has not been very sustainable, right? People have always expressed their dissatisfaction over this. There have been uprising against these legal systems, these legal political orders. If you look at the other ways of establishing peace, it's through justice and harmony, and those models have been very sustainable because that's based on people's emotions and ideas, based on collaborations. There you don't have an enemy image, all these kinds of things. So, we have to choose which way we want to take for justice or for peace to happen. We want to take the justice means.
Yeah. And so what would you say if, and you might get this question a lot when you're going around and spreading this message and teaching others about restorative justice, those who may think, well, what else are you supposed to do? Like if someone commits a crime, what's the alternative? What does that look like?
Yeah, and we tend to see that crime is a standalone phenomenon or a standalone event, right? It occurs in a very isolated context. That's what we tend to think, or what the justice system thinks. But that's not close to a truth, I would say. All of the crimes have a background. It comes from certain contexts, social, economic, political contexts. So many things happen before someone commits crime or before someone is arrested, and then there are many things that happen after someone is arrested or after someone comes out of jail or prison. So all of these have social consequences or social aspects to it. So we are not saying that we should not have prisons now. We don't need to arrest anybody. We don't need to punish anybody. That's not what we are saying. What we are saying is, let's do this for the moment, but let's see the deeper and longer consequence of the causes to this. So let's see why crimes are occurring in the first instance, so that we can start addressing the causes so that crimes will not occur anymore, or it will increase, it will decrease. And then let's also see what consequences we have when we, go building the system stronger, or when we go punishing people more harsher and harsher, what will happen, right? So that, there are families, there are societies that are dependent of these people who commit crime, or people who were victims of the crime or conflict. So none of the laws, none of the justice systems tend to focus on these aspects, the causes or the consequences. They just focus on the event of crime, or the act that someone is getting arrested or put behind bars. That's a very small part of the whole process. And I don't think nobody denies in Nepal, or very few people deny the causes or the consequences, but we say that's very important to see. So in most of our trainings, we see that people agree that there has been this shortcoming, there has been a short-sightedness of the way justice system is working. So people agree that there has not been enough attention to the causes or consequences, but what they don't want to believe instantly is how we are going to address those, now. So what we say is, or what we've been saying is, so we are not trying to change things overnight. So let's at least take a step. Let's at least start thinking that there are more things than that meets our eye. That meet our eye. We need to, look at the collective, look at the holistic approach, and then we will see how we can address. People agree that there are more things than what the laws do, but what they don't see immediately is how we are going to achieve those. So yeah, that's where we have the mission, or the organization that I'm in now. We have the lifelong mission. It's not something that we're doing for 2 years or 4. We're doing this for our life. I'm committing my life for this goal. So I'm readily saying that this is not something that I can achieve in 5 years or 10, right? This is something that we need to work for our life. And the reason is that, this system was built, there are decades spent on building the system. So we need to spend some decades on unbuilding this. So logically, yeah.
Yeah, it won't happen overnight, that's for sure.
It
And I think that
won't.
everybody wants the same thing. They want peace and no crime and everyone taken care of. I don't think anyone can, you know, disagree with that without desire, right? But
Mm.
it's in the execution of that. So, like, how do you make that happen? Well, it was
Mm-hmm.
happening before the justice system was instituted in Nepal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And so now it's happening very differently. So, but you did mention that, yes, there's a legal system in place where people are going through the legal system in a way that you would in the United States, but there's still a culture of, of like oneness, really, and making sure that everyone's okay. And then if someone, um, like goes out into the world and commits a crime or does something, then it's the cultural response is to embrace the individual and say, how can we help put you on a different path, or what can we do to help this person? Like, am I on the right track there?
You are. We used to have, and we still do have, traditional community mediation, or traditional, dispute resolution systems in place. Still, the government reports that we have suggest that more than 80% of the cases, the cases of conflicts or crimes, are settled inside communities still. That's today. So people belong more to communities. than to the state, or than to the modern, this complex legal system. People have more faith in the communities than on the state or than on the justice system, because like I told you, it does not, the state or the modern legal system does not have anything that makes people feel, the sense of belonging. It is very detaching, it does not want to include you. It wants to exclude you, by creating barriers like professional barriers, fees, money, processes, the language. All of these are barriers to people's access to justice. So now we see people, solving disputes in their own communities, in their own ways, and we used to have this for centuries. So we think that for that reason alone, we have a great potential to bring back the traditional system that we had in place. If there were deficiencies in those traditional systems, it's easy changing the traditional system than having this huge, gigantic system which is not working, which is very new, which is very alien to us. We don't understand the language or the workings of this imported system. Why don't we cultivate what we already have, so everybody gets a sense of belonging, than having this system which is benefiting only a handful of people.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you also see this, this traditional processes in many countries across South Asia and Asia. They have these traditional dispute resolution systems, and people have great faith in them. Then the newly introduced justice systems. And remember that we and this region were, Nepal was not a direct colony, but many of the countries were colonies of Great Britain or the West, right? So the laws were actually introduced by them. So they have the language that our laws, or the laws in this region, have the language that these British systems have in way back in the West. These laws are very new to us still.
Yeah. And so it is interesting in thinking about translating that into a culture that never considered, creating law around any society. So, yes. So in the U.S., we have a very different conversation when it comes to conflict resolution and teaching that, because this has been going on for so long, and we're so far removed from the idea that we're all in this together. And yes, it's wonderful that it makes a lot of sense what you say about like don't get too far before you start to turn that around, right?
That's right. That's very right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but like when you have been traveling around the world learning about conflict resolution, in the United States or in Europe, and thinking about bringing that message back to Nepal, what does that look like in regards to like you're in thinking about like how to communicate that concept into a culture that has its own organic conflict resolution system?
Well, one of the main reasons why I travel is reaffirming my belief that there are many people who want to change the way we think and work in terms of justice and peace. People like you, or people who are working in various capacities, to build a different thinking and a different world ultimately. The other reason why I travel and I use the opportunities of traveling to find out how communities respond differently to the needs of justice and peace. So when I bring that knowledge back to our workings, back to our trainings here in Nepal, I find that it resonates a lot to what we feel here, what people feel here. We talk a lot about the universality of certain emotions. People express in very similar ways their needs for justice, their needs for peace, happiness, pleasure, sadness, sorrow. These kinds of things people express very similarly, or I would say people connect a lot to other people's sorrows or happiness. The compassion that we have is very unique to us humans. That's I think that's also that's one of the concepts that under that on how do you say that lays the foundation of one humanity, right? So even in Nepal we have more than 100 languages. But remember, it's very interesting to know that and then 100 languages as many cultures, almost all cultures have their own ways of building peace, community peace traditionally. Even if I don't understand the language of the other culture, people working in those cultures, I understand their happiness. I understand their sorrow or their sadness, their sorrow or the sadness. So there is this connection, that human connection that we all share, and it's very easy to connect if we build on that thread of humanity. So languages are very different. Language of the countries that are not ours are different. I don't speak the language that you speak, right, very fluently, but then we connect to people very easily through emotions that are there. And I recently read an article called that was on justice as a basic human need. So justice, which was very much hijacked to understand it was law, or our judges do, is not what it is. Justice is more inside us. There is this feeling of the need of justice, or our feeling of injustice, which is more wired to our humanity than to professionals or judges and courts. So I see that wherever I travel, or inside the country or outside, I see that we are talking of same things, and therefore it's very easy to build on the commonality that we have. So we have differences, but then we have differences that allow us to join together. We don't have differences are not the same as incompatibilities, right? So incompatibilities are something that will cause conflict, but differences are something that makes us more interesting, more connected, more human, I would say.
Yes, yeah. And here it's that, like if you don't agree, then you can't get along. And that's the
Yeah.
nature of our binary political system. So, yeah. And so when you're teaching the tools of so a restorative circle, I don't know what you call it. Do you call it a restorative circle?
Yeah, I mean I should have told you, we don't call restorative in most of our trainings to people.
Okay.
We didn't even use the Nepali word for restorative, although we have coined a word for this. A very we have made the word very easily understandable to people, and it does not exactly translate restorative justice as it is widely understood in the West. The reason is, we don't want to create a new, empire of restorative justice in Nepal and say that, see, we know restorative justice, we are the experts. we know what circles are. We don't want to create that message here. But in the trainings that we do, we just call them peace trainings, peace circles, justice circles, so that everybody understands. Or saying conflict transformation circles, or things that they understand, right? Or the circles of understanding, the circles of healing that people are more closely associated to. So that's the way we pitch the idea of restorative justice here in Nepal. And in the trainings that we do, I have found many people saying this, that you are telling us something that we were doing for centuries. People say this to me, or say us, they say that you are trying to tell us something in a very different way, so we feel very happy about that, when we hear these responses from people, in that, we're not creating a new language of, justice or peace, so that we become knowledge creators and we become powerful, and then, we give this knowledge to people that we don't want to create. So that's why people, if you look at the responses of people to our trainings, many of them feel that many of them say that they felt very connected to the work that we are doing, to the discourses that we want to promote, and then therefore they ask for more circles, more trainings, more sessions. If it were alien to them, if it was a foreign concept to them, I would. If it was a legal training, people don't want to do this, and or people don't feel so connected. Since it's something about justice and peace, more about humanity, and people feel that that's more close to their lives, and that's something that they want to achieve. And I must tell you that most of our people whom we work with are not lawyers as such. They are more community justice workers, community peace builders, who are working in different capacities, who do not have professional degrees or licenses, but have capacities to build peace in communities. And if I was a lawyer giving a training on law, the lawyers would benefit. But since this is a program on community peace and justice, the community people benefit. It's everybody benefiting. Then a section of people benefiting.
Right. Yeah. So at this point there may not be an audience in the legal field for this type of training. That's what you're saying.
Oh yes, although we did trainings on both trainings with both lawyers and non-lawyers, and what we see, we have also trained lawyers because we think that they need also to understand this in some ways so that they can incorporate this learning in their work. But the level of reception between the lawyers and non-lawyers is very, very different. It's starkly different. Lawyers have not been as receptive as community justice workers have been. And I understand that very obviously. One, it's because it goes so much against the profession, right? The lawyer's profession is very much built on adversarialism. You make people fight, so that you can litigate, you can make money out of this. What happens if nobody comes to court? Your profession doesn't work. Your profession dies. Yeah. So you have a very professional, pecuniary interest. But if you work with community peace builders, their interest is just community peace. Yeah. Everything that we give them benefits them. There is a very interesting, way that we are received. And then for that reason alone, we have, started working more in the communities so that, and that's where people need the most, benefit the most, and, get along very quickly. And for the lawyers, we need to have a different skill to get involved and engage. And it will take, or rather slow. I mean, it's a slow process with lawyers. With others, it's very easy.
I hear you on that. And you just said something very important. So a lot of times, and we've seen this happen in the US, how restorative justice became this huge umbrella of just like all kinds of things. It can even be teaching art in jail or things like that, right? So it became like, it doesn't really mean much, or it means a lot of things, which means it means nothing. So we've got that going on, and then we're trying to take that information, like in the peace building ideal, and stuff that into the justice system. Well, so that's not working either. What that's doing is what you said before, what you didn't want to do in Nepal is create another structure attached to the legal system that creates a larger system. So that's kind of what's been going on here. And so, yes, in the community, like if we don't need the justice system, then why would we try to fix it, right? We would instead go to the community and work within the community and create the change there. So the people don't want the justice system, and then the justice system that, that we know of, right, with the law and order, will slowly dissipate. So that's a profound statement that you just said, and something very important that restorative justice people like ourselves need to hear. So thank you for distinguishing that. Yeah. So we've been talking about circles, peace circles, healing circles. So for those people who don't know what that is, can you explain what that looks like?
Oh, sure. And it's only in our conversations that I'm mentioning circles. We don't even call circles in our context because, again, that sounds foreign, very alien. Yeah. Some people in Nepal have tried to, translate very literally the concept of circles, and when we go to communities, nobody understands that Nepali word for circles, right? So I see a great problem amongst us people who are in the restorative justice or justice world, who want to work in different fronts. When we try to create language of justice and peace, are we creating languages that connect us more with communities, or are we creating languages that gives us more power over communities? Are we working with communities, or are we going to work over communities? Right. So if we have this language of language of restorative justice or circles, or these big words, big concepts which people don't understand, I think that's something what we need to rethink in our work. So in our work, we don't say let's do circles. We just say let's sit together, without uttering the word circles. Let's sit together so every one of us can see everyone here.
I like it. Oh, that's
yeah. So everyone can hear everybody, and everyone can see everybody. Let's sit in such a way, and that is circle, right? If you sit in circle, that's only when you can hear everybody, see everybody. So that's circles. So it's and then people immediately feel the need of having circles because that's how they can hear, they see everybody. Rather than teaching them what circles are, these are the benefits of circles, and these are the demerits of circles. This is how we can have circles. We should have one, talking piece, and all these kinds of things, which I found very mechanical or very non-familiar to our context. We just say circles, and we just say sitting together, listening to everybody. And we say that, that people have really, really liked this idea. And people have felt that they feel more connected to everybody who are in the circles, and they've been able to, listen to the differences, listen to others more profoundly than they used to do, when they were sitting face to face, or when they were sitting, in a lecture mode, or all these kinds of things. So that has a very structurally very important meaning in our context. The second thing is, in our programs that we do, it does take some preparation to conduct, to actually bring people together, people who are in conflict, who are victimized, who are offenders, or who did wrongs. So it does take time for people to come together in our conferencing, what we say, in circles that we do. But after they come, after some preparations that we do, they found it a life-changing event, something that was not ever done by anybody before, meaning that nowhere in our laws or in our practices we used to bring victims and offenders together, or people who are on different sides of the crime or conflict together, trying to understand each other's needs, why someone committed crime, and whose face is there when I committed crime, right? The face of justice, the importance of face, the importance of humans in justice system. That has had a very profound effect. I had read before that when we see through our eyes the consequences of our actions, be the act of crime or conflict, when I see that from my eyes myself, I understand that very deep inside, and then that actually deters me from committing it another time. That is how crimes are reduced, because now I understand the consequences of my act, the extent of my harm, and then the other party also understands why I was doing that, that act, and what I was thinking when I was doing that. So there's an understanding of one another. There is a hearing of one another. Like I said before, circles are about seeing each other and hearing each other, and all these activities are about hearing each other and seeing each other. This is all the restorative justice, I would say.
Yeah.
Or circles or conferencing that we do in various contexts. But interestingly, the one point that you mentioned, about calling RJ everything that we do, we call restorative justice everything that we do. That is, I don't know what is the solution to this, but the best approach is, let's not call everything. Let's not just give everything a name. Let's do something. Let's just show what we are doing. Then think about giving it a name, right? So if we are doing things, if we are doing things that create justice, that create more understanding, that create more compassion or peace, give it any name. You can give it any name, right? But starting with a name, say restorative justice or anything, and doing it anything that you like, that actually causes more harm than the other. We should actually focus on the actions, and then give it any name you like. Then the reverse, I think.
Yeah, and that it kind of sends a spiritual message as well, in thinking about what you're going to call universal consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so then you name it, and then it becomes this thing that you can attach your beliefs to, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and your ideals, and then then you can use it as a tool for judging, and that's
Yes.
exactly what.
Yes. Exactly. And then that is a way how we build walls within us, right? That is, if I talk of a language that you don't understand,
Mhm.
That means I have the power over that knowledge, that concept, and you just become a receiver, rather than you and I co-creating this, out of our actions. So if we start things from our actions and both of us contributing together, co-creating this and giving it a name, or let's forget about giving it a name. Let's just do it. Yes, and then if you start from the other one, right? That's a very different route you are taking. Yeah, and we are not for the second one. We are for the work. That's work that connects us. Let's not even say restorative justice or circles. Let's just see what works best, and then we can rename, whatever.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. I like that idea. It makes a whole lot of sense in so many ways. So for the people who don't have any idea what we're talking about in regards to circles or people coming together in a place where everyone can see each other and hear each other, and so basically what we're saying is people are coming together who really aren't very happy with one another, and at the end, after this experience has taken place, everyone is recognizing their shared humanity, and no one wants the other to suffer. So
That's exactly right.
yeah. So can you explain what that process looks like for you, and when you're facilitating this type of experience for people?
Yeah, well, like I was indicating, we didn't want to have the structure of a circle. We don't want to have a fixed method. We didn't have to have, we didn't want to have a fixed language in governing the circle processes uh, or what we do in the name of circles.
Right. So there's no particular questions or anything like that.
Exactly. Yeah, because if you have that, you know, that will create again um, that will create a language that not everybody will share in the circles, but we do have an understanding of what works best, right? So we always talk of the causes of the event, what people were thinking when that event occurred, say when the crime or the wrongdoing happened. um, you know we also ask questions on um, how the act has affected the other party now. How are they living with the act? And we also ask people how both of these, or the community in general, wants to live with that action. What do they want as a solution to this, or not as a solution? What do they want to see the future of this act or the consequences of this act? You can give it any question you like, without judging them, without without saying who did what. We just leave it to people. We as facilitators we don't become the focal persons. We don't become the guiding people. Also, in our circles, we don't have a talking stick and a talking piece, or the talking stick. We don't use that. We saw that someone who came to Nepal was trying to introduce this in Nepal, but it didn't work. Because we didn't have that culture. Remember, in the U.S. or in some cultures where you were educated, or where you have seen, right? You might have seen those talking pieces. People connected. People used to hold that and they just talk, and then they used to pass that to other people. And that was the idea of that circle that people were doing in the West somewhere, right?
Right.
Here in our cultures, it didn't work. It does not work that way. People did not connect to the object that you are carrying. So you cannot force people to do that, because just because you have been taught that circle somewhere else, right? So see, the rigidity of structures is a problem everywhere. If you start with the structures of language or circles or RJ, that does not connect people. You know, for example, if I say, this is an object that I got from this place, this object does this, you should carry this, you should just speak when you have this, what I'm doing, I'm defining this object, I'm creating power out of this. Because people don't connect to this. If people don't connect to this object, why should we have this object?
Right, exactly.
It is creating barriers than bridges, right?
Right, and it's also creating another rule.
Exactly, and it's fundamentally opposite to the concept of justice and circles. It was justice and circles were about human beings, were about equality, egalitarianism, openness, no power, and this object is creating the reverse.
Right. Yes, I totally understand what you're saying in regards to that. Because with the more rules that you enter into the equation, the more hierarchical it becomes because who makes the rules, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, and so to have to call this something, you are on some level, even if not on purpose, excluding a group because there's a maybe a different connotation to a word or an object or something. And when you're in a culture that speaks, 100 different languages, then I can see how that would be absolutely impossible to give this a name. You just come together and you let happen what needs to happen. Is that right?
That's very right. And this fundamental understanding that you just reiterated has to, I think, go across, us, the people who want to, fight for this cause or work for this cause. Let's not start with power. If we are doing all this work, seeking some kind of power or control or ownership, I think this is not the field for us. It should be something else. This field should be the field of openness, accessibility, connection, bridges. Then then opacity, the power, the hierarchy, and all. The justice system already has that, right? The criminal justice system already has hierarchy, language, power, the opacity. And if we are doing, the same stuff in a different name, we're not doing fundamentally anything different. We're just doing the same. We're just becoming new judges, becoming new lawyers, becoming new, professionals, big men, big people.
Yes. Yes, that's the whole idea is that it's to not work within the system that has been created, but to create your own outside of that. And that looks very different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is so profound, actually. Very, very profound. Sometimes we go on creating, or we go on doing things that we initially wanted to demolish, right? So, say for example, I wanted to challenge the traditional criminal justice system because of the power, the language, the inaccessibility, the hierarchy. And then I want to challenge these all, and then I go and create again the language, the power, the hierarchy, the inaccessibility, in the name of restorative justice or peace or circles.
Yes, exactly. I hear you. Yeah, and so this is this is why I asked you to come here and participate in this with us, because you have this this unwavering recognition of the collective and oneness and all that is. And so if you could give a piece of advice to people watching right now, what can they do to anchor the consciousness of oneness on the planet? Starting with themselves, and even if just a thought or an idea that they could consider or ponder, what would that be?
Well, I'm still exploring what are the ways by which we connect more closely, more profoundly with one another wherever we are. I'm still exploring. We want to develop, tools. All of us maybe, should collectively work on this. But there are certain activities that we can do. For example, there are ways, compassion is one thing that we can build purposefully as well, right? Some people say compassion comes naturally, but instead of waiting for that natural thing to happen, we can also start building that on our own. We can practice compassion. So one of the ways of doing that is, and what we often emphasize here is pause before judge. So pause before judge is, before you judge something, wait for a second or for a minute. So when you allow that, that time between seeing an event and expressing yourself, reacting that instantly, if you allow that time, in between that allows us to, see more than what we would do if we just react. So that allows us to see why someone does this, what it feels to be like standing on his or her foot or shoes, and then also see the consequences of something happening to that people or someone whom we are observing. So compassion is one thing that we can have. And then the word compassion is a very big word. It's about hearing others, listening to others, before jumping to conclusions. If we just start from this, it can then lead to many other aspects of compassion, feeling the same emotions, being able to stand up for same causes and all. So these are other components, but let's start first by listening to others. Listening not just to reply, but to understand. There are two reasons why we listen. Listening just to reply, to react is one, but to understand why someone is saying that, what is the human behind some statement, behind some act. If you listen for that purpose, I think that creates some another very important consequence amongst us. And I think that would be one thing that every one of us can do every day, and see changes happening in our lives, and in our communities as well.
Yes, that's a lovely ending to this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yes, acting versus reacting, which is the starting point for practicing empathy and compassion. Like that's beautiful. Thank you so very much for being here with me, my dear friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, so much for giving me this opportunity to share what we've been doing and actually share our dreams of having this shared humanity amongst the community that we are in. Thank you so much again. Yeah. And congratulations for for this initiative that you've started, and hope that it will create more positive ripples in our community.
Yes, that's the hope. It's I hope that we will be sitting here next year doing this very same thing. And before we go, what I want to do is I know that you're having a conference, the second annual Nepal Conference on Restorative Justice, happening in like the end of November, the 24th and 25th.
24th and 25th, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's happening every year. So that's something, if anyone's interested, you can always go. Can they just go to your website and get that?
They can go to our website or our Facebook page. Our website is nepaljustice.org. It's very easy. Our Facebook, you can find us by our name, or facebook.com/nepaljustice is where we are.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And if you have any other questions for Ram during our time together, we can do, of course, you've got the Facebook group, so you can ask questions there and he'll respond
Mhm.
to you. So thank you. And I hope that I will be with you in Nepal next year for the 2019 conference. And we'll
Oh
be,
my, yeah, that would be an extreme honor for us. Yeah, we see that the community is increasing. People are coming from different countries every year. So yeah, we would love to have you next year, or say very soon.
yes, I would love to come. And so hopefully we'll be doing this and then we'll be doing
Sure.
that in 2019.
Hmm.
So
Sure. Yeah, that would be amazing.
yeah, it totally would. All right. Well, thank you, Ram. I really appreciate you
Thank you
taking the
so much.
time and being with us today and getting up very early in the morning.
No problem. My honor.
All right. Well, okay. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and we'll see you next time. And Ron will talk soon. Okay. All right.